Hello, and welcome to our MarkStrat final presentation for Team Robust. Our group consists of LaDonia Butler, Janisha Graham-Handy, Franklin Sebo, and myself, Leah Stewart. The overall performance of our firm was very good. After 6 simulation periods, our firm, Robust, came in first place with a total SPI of 1,696. We ranked number 1 in share price index, number 1 in volume market share, number 1 in value market share, and number 1 in net contribution. The share price index evolution graph and the SPI graph shows how our performance increased each period. We will discuss later on in the presentation our strategy, brand performance, some marketing concepts, keys to our success, and lessons that we learned. This is the financial statement of our firm, Robust. The statement proves that we invested a lot into our firm, which yielded great results in the end. Let's take a look at the money spent on research and development. We spent over $5 million in period 3 and 4 to improve the characteristics of the brand that did not meet the requirements of the target segment. Performing the R&D was one of the best decisions that we made in the simulation. The contribution before marketing was $46,936 and the contribution after marketing was $38,484 in period 4. In period 5, the contribution before marketing was $81,481 and the contribution after marketing was $70,488. This is almost twice as much the contribution in period 4. You can also see that we spent a lot of money on market research studies in each period. The market research studies provided good information to help us make better decisions. Our firm had 3 Sonite products, Rock, Roll, and Rope. 2 of our brands, Rock and Roll, were the top-selling brands in the market. Most of the contribution after marketing was generated by Rock in 5 of the periods. This was a very high-risk situation in case competition became stronger in the market. However, we decided to take this risk because the target segment of professionals was not attractive for future growth. Therefore, we knew the other firms would not target this segment. The strategy was to gain enough revenue in the first 4 periods and use that money to invest into the other segments that were attractive for future growth, such as millennials and Gen Z. Rock was the leader in professionals with a share of 76.6%, and it was perceived well and met the expectations of professionals. Roll was honestly our saving grace. In the beginning, we targeted baby boomer, but we realized that this segment was not attractive for future growth either. So we decided to target a segment with future growth, which was millennials. We then performed an R&D project to improve the characteristics to meet the expectations of millennials. This was what made Roll the number 2 top-selling brand at the end of period 6. We went from selling 30,000 units in period 3 to selling 347,000 units in period 6. Roll was the leader in millennials with a share of 47%, and it was the brand with the highest awareness levels amongst offerings targeted at millennials. Rope was another Sonite product that was launched in period 5. The target market was also millennials, but it was ranked number 3 with a share of 14.7%. The brand was not perceived well and the physical characteristics did not meet the millennials' expectations. Therefore, the contribution after marketing was below average. Rope was not successful because we launched it too late, so we were not able to perform an R&D to improve the physical characteristics. Identifying a target segment helps the firm to develop effective marketing strategies. Research of segmentation and studying our target's desires was the basis for our success. Utilizing the premise and definition of segmentation and considering these target segments and consumer patterns were similar, we made adjustments based on their ideals. Therefore, based on the quality of our brand Rock, we chose to target a segment that valued high quality and performance. Keeping this in mind, we wanted to also keep the ease of use in mind. Capitalizing on professionals' ability to pay more for quality, we overshot the price point and it was lowered to maximize sales. After the R&D project was implemented, brand Roll and newly launched brand Rope targeted a high-growth segment, millennials. As you can see in the graph, millennials have a considerable consumer size at 27%. Based on the unit sales by customer segment graph, 576,000 units were sold to millennials. Market research and product development based on the semantic scale was a priority, and healthy investments were made throughout each period to determine the ever-evolving needs of the consumer market in each segment. The evolution of ideal points graph shows how each segment's ideal characteristics changed. For example, the number of features increased in 3 periods for millennials from 2.0 to 2.2. Display increased from 4.6 to 5.0. Battery remained the same at 2.9, and design decreased from 4.9 to 5.0. It is important to monitor the evolution to meet the ideal characteristics of the target segment and maintain growth of the market share. The pricing strategy was determined by a continuous changing metrics based upon demand, how many units will it take to supply the demand of consumers, and what the unit margin will be after each unit is produced and marketed and sold. The market value of the pricing of competitors also played a key role. Although our brands were more expensive in some cases, the quality superseded the need to decrease pricing. Lastly, but certainly the most important, Robust always kept the needs and ideal perceptions of pricing for the targeted segments first. The idea of place utility refers to having the product available in the channel the customer is likely to be. Each round, we increase the commercial team to properly distribute products to compete with our competitors. We utilize the shopping habits panel to determine the appropriate allocation for the targeted segment. In period 1, our market share was significantly low due to distribution not being properly allocated. In period 2, we showed improvement with Rock and seemed to be perfectly aligned with the sales made in each channel by period 3. We learned that placing the product in the right channel generated higher sales. We saw this with the brand Rock in period 3 and again with the brand Rope in period 6. The targeted segment for the brand Rope was millennials, and they ranked number 1 in terms of value retail sales in period 6. Millennials mostly shopped in mass merchandise, and we allocated 44% to this channel in period 6. We learned that advertising and research is important to promoting and selling the brands. An adequate advertising budget correctly positions the brand for positive perceptions. We decreased our advertising media because it was slightly higher than our competitors. We also made sure that we allocated 15% of the advertising budget to research. Over the periods, we learned to focus on one segment for each brand and that our advertising budget would allocate appropriately across the selected segments. We adjusted the perceptual objectives based on the ideal values for the highest features for the targeted segment. We also performed an R&D to improve the characteristics to match the specifications of the millennial segment. We launched a new Sonite brand to target a highly forecasted growth segment, Gen Z. Advertising research, consumer segments, perceptual objectives, and R&D all play a part in returning high market shares, revenues, and net contributions. Some of the lessons that we learned were that commercial teams need to be properly aligned to improve distribution. We also learned that marking prices too high can result in a loss of sales to our competitors. Another thing that we learned was performing R&D projects early can improve brand awareness and sales for the firm. Lastly, we learned that it is important for the production and distribution channels to be spot on to avoid low purchase intentions. Within the first 2 periods, we realized the importance of the market research studies that were purchased. We were able to use the semantic scale for our brand roll to change the characteristics to exactly what our target customers wanted. Though we should have started an R&D project on roll in an earlier period, we were still able to turn this brand around and make it a success when it was highly unsuccessful in the first 3 periods. We also used the market forecast to choose a new target segment for roll. It was initially targeted to baby boomers, but this segment had very low future growth, so we began targeting millennials, who are one of the highest future growth segments in our market. This helped us make the brand roll successful by the end of the simulation. There are a couple of things that we would have done differently if given the chance. First, we would have created the brand rope earlier or done research in the Vodite market sooner so that we would be able to launch a new brand in that market. This would have helped increase our revenue sooner so that we would have more funds to increase advertising, increase commercial sales force, and be able to afford research and development for these new brands. Another thing that we would have done differently would be to increase our production of our brand roll, even more than we did, once we used the R&D project that we created to change the characteristics. We missed out on an estimated 173,000 sales because we did not produce enough units. This would have increased our sales revenue and allowed us to gain more market share.